Crash and burn.
Hey everyone. So tonight, I want to discuss sort of like one of the best one-offs in Warp Records history, and that is Team Shade Tech's Burnerism. Now I think this clocks in technically under the EP umbrella, because I think this record's only about 28 minutes, and of course for a record to be considered, a full length, it has to be 30 minutes or more. So this EP is too brief, quite frankly. This EP is perfect. This is like Team Shade Tech, in a sense, can be best described as sort of if Autechre had more of a sort of turntablist / hip-hop lean. If the guys in Autechre were more into hip-hop, they would probably sound like Team Shade Tech. And that is a really good way of summing up this EP. My favorite tracks on here are Menthol, House of Leaves, which is no doubt a nod to the book, and then Hard Dragon and Infamy. However, I will argue back that this is one of those EPs that I don't really attempt to pull songs off of this. Those are my favorite songs, but I've never isolated them by way of putting them on like a separate playlist or like on like a separate cassette at this point. Actually, when I got this way back when, I was still making cassettes. So I find this record plays through better as a whole product. Each song complements and sort of sets up the track. You know, the track before complements and sets up the track that comes next, and so on and so forth. My only real complaint about this is the fact that it is incredibly brief. And if I'm not mistaken too, I think this is the only release that Team Shade Tech had done for Warp Records. So that, you know, usually it's the EP that they release as a WAP, and then after the WAP comes the full length. So the Warp release on Warp Records. And I don't think that ever happened with Team Shade Tech. Now, you could argue that with something that sounds this perfect, why fuck it up by trying to squeeze out a full length when you've made such a complete sounding EP? You know, you get in when you're hot and then get out when you're not. It's a smart move, right? I feel sort of the same way about Brotham States with QTO and what the fuck was the name of his full length? I think it was Claro. His EP and his full length were great. They complemented each other perfectly. And then that was kind of it for Brotham States. Him and Warp Records, they never teamed up again. And quite frankly, I don't know if he's ever done anything after that, because I never really got that into him. I thought the EP and his full length were rad. But then beyond that, I kept getting lost in Autechre and Aphex Twin and everything. So I think the same thing probably stands here. Team Shade Tech, I don't know what the hell happened to them, but Burnerism's amazing. This thing, it plays out. It's so much fun. And it's like I said, it's like the catchiest parts of Autechre put more into sort of easier to swallow song lengths. Like Autechre are my absolute favorites, like on the Warp Records roster, but their songs are incredibly long. I mean, from record to record, that's not always true. The lion's share of Autechre's music is incredibly long, but every so often they will release a record that has a bunch of short songs. But by and large, Autechre's stuff is huge and sprawling and long, and had they been shorter and more concise, they would sound a lot like Team Shade Tech, I think. So yeah, I am going to go, because I don't even think I said anything really that coherent about this EP other than just sort of gushing about how it's perfect sounding. But yeah, so thank you so much for hanging out with me while I discuss Team Shade Tech's EP for Warp Records, their only EP, and I think their only release for Warp Records, and that is Burnerism. Like always, if you like this review or you love this record, don't forget to do something nice for somebody, but most importantly, don't forget that the world is a better place because you are in it. Have a good night.